History is a tapestry woven with threads of triumph and tragedy, innovation and ignorance, creation and cruelty. It whispers to us from the ruins of ancient cities and the dusty pages of forgotten texts. Some of these whispers are faint, their stories lost to the sands of time. Others echo with a chilling resonance, forcing us to confront the darkest aspects of the human experience. Cannibalism, the act of consuming human flesh, stands as a stark reminder of the complexities and contradictions inherent in our nature. Across continents and cultures, the practice of cannibalism has cast a long and unsettling shadow. From the remote highlands of New Guinea, where tribes engaged in ritualistic practices to honor their ancestors and absorb their strength, to the steamy jungles of the Amazon, where the consumption of enemies was believed to transfer their power and courage to the victor, and the sun-baked temples of Mesoamerica, where human sacrifice and subsequent cannibalism were intertwined with religious ceremonies to appease the gods and ensure the fertility of the land, tribes and civilizations have engaged in this taboo act for reasons as varied as their customs and beliefs. Examining these practices, stripping away our modern preconceptions, allows us to glimpse into the hearts and minds of people whose lives and worldviews were vastly different from our own. It is a journey into the heart of darkness, a quest to understand the extremes of human behavior. By delving into these unsettling aspects of history, we not only uncover the motivations behind such acts, but also gain a deeper understanding of the human condition. The rituals and beliefs that drove these practices were often rooted in a complex web of spirituality, survival, and social cohesion. In some cultures, cannibalism was seen as a way to honor the dead, to keep their spirit alive within the community. In others, it was a method of instilling fear and asserting dominance over enemies. These practices, while abhorrent to us today, were integral to the social and spiritual fabric of the societies that practiced them. They reveal a side of humanity that is both fascinating and terrifying, a reminder of the lengths to which people will go to survive, to thrive, and to make sense of the world around them. As we listen to these whispers from the past, we are reminded of the fragility of our own moral frameworks and the ever-present potential for darkness within the human soul. In understanding these practices, we are not condoning them, but rather seeking to comprehend the full spectrum of human behavior. It is through this understanding that we can hope to learn from the past, to recognize the signs of our own potential for cruelty, and to strive for a future where such darkness is acknowledged, remembered, and ultimately transcended. In the remote and rugged highlands of Papua New Guinea, a land of mist-shrouded valleys and cloud-piercing peaks, lived the Fore people. These indigenous people, known for their bravery and resilience in the face of a harsh environment, also harbored a dark secret, a unique form of ritualistic cannibalism. The Fore practiced endo-cannibalism, the consumption of their own kin, as a central part of their mortuary rituals. This practice, far from being a barbaric act of savagery, stemmed from a complex system of beliefs about life, death, and the spiritual realm. For the Fore, eating the remains, particularly the brains of deceased relatives, was not an act of disrespect or violence. Instead, it was viewed as the ultimate act of love and compassion, a way to honor their memory and ensure that their spirit remained close to the family. Anthropologists believe that the Fore's unique form of cannibalism was driven by a desire to maintain a spiritual connection with the deceased. This practice, known as endo-cannibalism, was not merely an act of consumption, but a deeply spiritual and cultural ritual that held significant meaning for the Fore people. They believed that consuming the body, particularly the brain, allowed them to absorb the knowledge, strength, and wisdom of their loved ones. This act was seen as a way to honor the deceased and ensure that their spirit continued to live on within the community. The brain, being the seat of thought and memory, was considered the most potent part to consume. Interviews with elder members of the Fore tribe revealed that the act of consuming the remains was accompanied by elaborate rituals and ceremonies. These ceremonies were meticulously planned and executed, often involving the entire community. The elders would recount stories of the deceased, sharing their life achievements and contributions to the tribe, thus reinforcing the communal bonds. These rituals, shrouded in secrecy and steeped in spiritual significance, were believed to facilitate the transfer of the deceased's essence to the living. The use of specific ceremonial artifacts and chants was integral to the process, each element carefully chosen to aid in the spiritual journey of the deceased and the living participants. Women and children were often the primary participants in these mortuary feasts, as they were believed to be more spiritually receptive to the deceased's essence. Their involvement was crucial, as it was thought that their purity and innocence made them ideal conduits for the spiritual energy being transferred. The act of consuming the flesh, and particularly the brain, though considered sacred, was not without risk. The process was carried out with great reverence and care, but the potential dangers were not fully understood by the Fore people at the time. It was this practice that would eventually lead to the emergence of a deadly prion disease known as kuru, a devastating neurological disorder. Kuru, which means to shake in the Fore language, was characterized by severe tremors, loss of coordination, and ultimately death. The disease spread rapidly through the community, primarily affecting women and children, the main participants in the endo-cannibalistic rituals. This tragic outcome highlighted the unforeseen consequences of their deeply rooted cultural practices. Section 4. A culture engulfed, the Kuru epidemic. In the mid-20th century, a terrifying illness began to ravage the Fore people. Kuru, a degenerative neurological disorder, caused severe tremors, loss of coordination, and ultimately death. The disease spread rapidly through the Fore population, primarily affecting women and children. Medical researchers, baffled by the disease's rapid spread and gruesome symptoms, embarked on a quest to uncover its cause. Their investigations revealed a chilling link between Kuru and the Fore's cannibalistic practices. The act of consuming the brains of deceased relatives, often handled and prepared by women, was the primary mode of transmission for the deadly prion responsible for Kuru. The prion, a misfolded protein, wreaked havoc on the brain, causing the debilitating neurological symptoms that characterize the disease. Section 5. The Caribbean's fierce navigators, the Carib Indians. Far from the misty highlands of New Guinea, on the sun-drenched islands of the Caribbean, another group of people practiced a very different form of cannibalism. The Carib Indians, skilled navigators and fierce warriors, instilled fear in the hearts of their enemies. Their name itself, the origin of the word cannibal, became synonymous with the very act they practiced. Unlike the Fore, whose cannibalism was rooted in spiritual beliefs and familial ties, the Caribs practiced a form of warfare cannibalism. Their motivations, though complex, were often intertwined with concepts of dominance, terror, and the acquisition of power. The consumption of their enemies, particularly the hearts and livers, was seen as a way to absorb their strength and courage. Section 6. Terror and Domination. The Cannibalistic Reign of the Caribs. The Caribs' reputation as fearsome warriors spread throughout the Caribbean, preceding their arrival on any island they chose to conquer. Their name alone struck fear into the hearts of neighboring tribes, who knew that resistance often meant a fate worse than death. Their cannibalistic rituals, often performed in full view of their terrified captives, served as a powerful psychological weapon. These rituals were not random acts of violence, but were deeply rooted in their cultural beliefs and warfare strategies. The act of consuming their enemies' hearts, believed to be the seat of courage, was not merely an act of barbarity. It was a calculated strategy designed to instill terror and break the spirit of their adversaries. By doing so, they aimed to demoralize their enemies and deter future resistance. Spanish chroniclers, documenting their encounters with the Caribs, described gruesome scenes of cannibalistic feasts. These accounts, often exaggerated, painted a picture of the Caribs as the ultimate warriors of the Caribbean, unmatched in their ferocity and cunning. Heads of vanquished foes were often preserved as trophies, grim reminders of the tribe's power and ruthlessness. These macabre displays served as a warning to any who might challenge the Caribs' dominance. The Caribs believed that by consuming the flesh of their enemies, they could absorb their strength and vitality, making them even more formidable in battle. This belief was a cornerstone of their martial culture, reinforcing their identity as warriors, who were not only physically powerful, but also spiritually invincible. Despite their fearsome reputation, the Caribs also had a rich cultural life. Their villages were vibrant communities where daily activities such as fishing, farming, and crafting were carried out with skill and dedication. The Caribs were not just warriors, they were also skilled artisans and navigators, capable of traversing the vast Caribbean Sea. Their prowess in navigation allowed them to establish trade networks with other tribes, exchanging goods and knowledge. This aspect of their culture is often overshadowed by their reputation for violence, but it was equally important in maintaining their dominance in the region. The Caribs' strategic acumen was evident in their ability to plan and execute complex raids and conquests. Their leaders were not only fierce warriors, but also shrewd tacticians who understood the importance of psychological warfare and the element of surprise. The legacy of the Caribs is a testament to their resilience and adaptability. While their methods were brutal, they were also effective in ensuring their survival and dominance in a region marked by constant conflict and competition.